So this is a refresher on the Pythagorean theorem, both in word problems and on the coordinate plane. So Oscar's doghouse is shaped like a tent. The slanted sides are both 5 feet long, and the bottom of the house is 6 feet across. What is the height of his doghouse in feet at its tallest point? So first thing I'm going to do is identify what I am looking for. My question. I am looking for the height of the doghouse, which is shaped like a tent, so I'm going to go ahead and draw my tent. Then I'm going to label my sides that I'm given. It says the slanted sides are both 5 feet. And then it says the bottom of the house is 6 feet across, so this whole thing is 6. And I'm looking for the height of the house in feet at its tallest point, which means it's going to come from the point, the very top, straight down, which is going to form a right angle. So I know I can use Pythagorean theorem to solve for missing sides. So this means in order to get this height, I need to use the slanted side of 5 and the base. Now we have to be careful because the 6 is not the base. The 6 is the base of the entire bottom. However, the height, the line we drew, is halfway in between the entire bottom, which means the base of just this side is going to be 3. So therefore, I can go ahead and write my formula. Remember, for Pythagorean theorem, it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Remember, for a and b, it doesn't matter which one we use. I just know one is the base and one is the height. So I need to determine which letters I have. When I look at my triangle and I look across, my right angle, remember that's the hypotenuse, that is c. So I have c, so I'm going to fill that in as 5 squared. And again, it looks like I have my base. I'm looking for my height. I'm just going to leave my height as a squared plus my base, which is 3 squared. I'm going to go ahead and multiply it out. 3 squared is 9, 3 times 3, and 5 squared is 25. Then to get a by itself, I need to subtract 9 from both sides, and I'm left with a squared equals 16. Now remember, in order to get a by itself, to get rid of the square, I have to do the inverse, which is to take the square root of both sides. If I take the square root of a squared, I'm just left with a, and the square root of 16 is 4. Now, if you don't remember where the square root button is on the calculator, it is the blue button above the x squared. So in order to do that, I have to press the blue second button at the very top, and then I press the x squared, which will give me the square root. So always going back to my question, I just found A. A was my height since it was part of the triangle, so I did answer my question. The height of the doghouse is 4 feet. Alright, the second one says Mr. Jeffrey is putting in a new garden in the backyard, shown below. He will plant soil in the garden and put a fence around it to keep his dog out. About how much space will the garden take up in his backyard? So first I'm going to identify my question. I'm looking for how much space the garden is going to take up. So this one's a little tricky because it talks about planting soil in the garden, which means that's everything on the inside because that's where we're going to plant the soil. But we're putting a fence around it to keep his dog out. So if we're putting a fence around that, that means to me that it's talking about perimeter. But the actual question itself is talking about how much space the garden is taking up. Space means everything on the inside, which means I'm talking about the area. So I actually need to find the area of the garden. Also, a strategy is if you look at the answer choices, all of the answer choices are labeled in feet squared. I know that area is measured in square feet, So that's another way to tell that it's asking for area. So now I need to first write my area formula for a triangle, which we have to remember is 1/2 base times height. So the base and the height are going to be these straight lines, and they form the right angle. So what I see here is that I am missing my base. So in order to find the area, I first have to find the base. Since I have a right triangle, I can go ahead and use Pythagorean theorem to find the base. Opposite of my right angle is my hypotenuse. I actually am given it, so I'm going to leave it, put it in a squared, or c squared. I don't know one of the sides, so I'm going to let that be a squared plus 14 squared equals 18 squared. Go ahead and square my numbers. I get 196 for 14 squared and 324 for 18 squared. I'm going to subtract 196 from both sides, and I get 128. I need to take the square root, and I get a equals. I'm going to go ahead and round to the nearest tenth, so it's going to be 11.3. So go back to what we were looking for. We were looking for the area of the garden. I am not finished because I just found the side or the base of the garden. So now I'm going to use my formula since I have both the base and the height. So I'm going to do 1/2 times 11.3 times 14. And I get 79.1 square feet. Now when I look at my answer choices, it says about, so my answer is going to be C. 79 feet squared is how much the garden will take up, because that is the area. Alright, so I see a quadrilateral on the coordinate plane. I'm looking for the perimeter, which means I am looking for to add up all of the sides. Now there are 3 sides that are really easy to determine the length, which are my straight lines that go horizontal and vertical. So I'm going to go ahead and label these. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this one is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one is also 5. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I don't exactly know what BC is because it's that slanted side. So if we remember, we can create a right triangle to determine that. So I'm going to form my right angle and form my base and the height. So I'm looking for, this time, I'm looking for my hypotenuse. Again, I can form a right angle with that slanted side, which means I can use Pythagorean theorem to solve. So this time I don't have the hypotenuse, I don't have C, so I'm going to label it C squared. Now I need to count just how high and what the length of the base is. So for the height, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just going to put that in for a squared, so 5 squared. And then the base is 1, 2, 3. I'll put that in for 3 squared. Now just solve. 5 squared is 25. Plus 3 squared is 9 equals C squared. 25 plus 9 is 34 equals C squared. Take the square root. And I get, I'm going to go ahead and just round to the nearest tenth again, 5.8 equals C. Now I'm going to label that. 5.8 is the length of BC, the slanted side. So going back, I am looking for the perimeter. I have not solved yet, and now I just need to add up my sides. So I have 5.8, 5, 5, and 8. And I get 23.8 as my perimeter.